G'day! In today's video I'll be telling a bit of a story regarding the most pins that have bent on an AM4 processor. So as you can see here in this current video, I'm removing a stock AM4 cooler. All going along perfectly normally. Just undoing the threads, and during the video I'm talking about how the new latch system on some coolers reminds me of Athlon XP processors or AMD 64 processors, which tend to have a tendency of coming out of the slot when you actually remove the stock cooler. I'm not sure why, just usually the factory thermal paste tends to bond extremely well. Turns out that's the case with AM3s. As you can see right there, there is one processor now out of the motherboard, magically without lifting up the latch at all. So what I should have done there is, once I've loosened the screws just enough, I should have twisted the cooler probably 90 degrees, or even, not even that, probably even just a few degrees, just to break the adhesiveness of the thermal paste. As you can see here, I've bent a few in the top left hand corner here, probably about 5 or 6. And then there's also, I think, a couple over near my finger on the right hand side near the arrow. So it's not good when you bend pins on a brand new AMD 3600. Granted, it could potentially be a lot worse. But with the right tool and a bit of patience, you can usually fix this up pretty well. So I've definitely straightened out pins on processors before with usually very good success. In a recent video I did try to remove pins and potentially re-stick pins on, but that was a complete fail and just turned into a teardown video more than anything. So as you can see, I've pretty much left the processor just stuck on the cooler itself. Gives me something a bit bigger to actually hold. But what I'm doing here is typically looking straight down the processor like this and making sure everything is nice and uniform. If it's all nice and uniform, in theory, it should fit back into the slot perfectly well. So I've still got a little bit of work here. I can see a couple of pins still that don't look right, and also at the top here. So by some rough counting, I've probably bent between probably 10 and 15 different pins, which is, yeah, no good. But it is what it is. In the past, I've come across plenty of AMD 64s that when you remove them, when you take off the latch cooler, that it just completely strips off the processor straight out of the socket. Pretty much exactly what's happened here. But I found with that particular style, pins never really got bent. But then you had the very big dilemma of how are you actually going to get that processor back in there. So in this one it came off relatively easy. A twist and it's off. But those ones usually I'd end up having to heat up the cooler itself and then a flathead screwdriver underneath to actually get it to release, which is very risky and not very fun. So right now I'm just doing a final check and it's looking good. Do have to wiggle it around just a little bit. So I'd say one pin in particular is catching. And sometimes just a little bit of force and a bit of a push usually gets it back into position. So still one bent pin, but I'll straighten that out and put it in. And from there, this process has been going pretty darn well. So luckily, major damage averted. And that'll do for today, and I'll catch you guys in another video. Hopefully you don't end up doing this yourself. Bye.